Ash. You know, you don't wake up one day and decide to run 250 miles. You build into it through life, through chaos, through curiosity. Jenny started her journey with a half marathon. No training, just heart. Years later, after raising four kids and hiking through thousands of miles, she found herself towing the start line at Cocodona. Not once, three times. She ran through injury, through mud, through cold, and hallucinations, through worry for her sons who were racing alongside her. And she finished because stopping wasn't the story she was writing. This is a journey of relentless forward motion, from snow covered trails in Colorado to the brutal desert heat of Cocodona. This is from half marathon to 250 miles. So please let me introduce to our guest today. Here is Jenny. Jenny, welcome to the show and thank you so much for giving your time while you were traveling on the road.
Yes, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm happy to be here.
Let's take at the very beginning when you got into the running and what made you do this in the long run because you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, I actually used to hate running. I did other sports, like going way back. I did sports that involved running, like field hockey. And then when I was in college, I did some rowing on a crew team. Our coach would make us run, and I hated it. But when I was no longer doing any organized sports, I missed it and I wanted to do something. And so I just started running and I just fell into it that way. I was just looking for some exercise. I was looking to be active and I just kept running. And I was very consistent and I would get up and run every day. I like to run in the morning. And I just liked how I felt. I just got into a pattern and a habit of it. And it felt great. It gave me time to think and to clear my mind and to get ready for the day and all of those things. And so I was just running. I was just going out for miles here, miles there when I decided to sign up for a half marathon. And that's the first race that I would say, like, that I recall, like, actually signing up for a race. And it was a half marathon. It was in Colorado. I was living in Denver at the time. And I was literally just running like a few miles a day prior to that. I did not really train for this half marathon. I just went out and I just wanted to see if I could do it. And it was not a big race. I don't even know how many people were in it, like probably only like 100 or 200 people, not even in the entire race. And I just went out and it was this winter morning and it was snowing and it was just absolutely beautiful. Small town in Colorado. And I ended up doing really well in that race. And I was just going out for a run. I just was like, let's see if I can finish this thing. I didn't really train for it specifically and I didn't try to race it, but I placed well and was just pleasantly surprised. One of my friends' boyfriends was a runner, like in high school and college. And when he saw that I had done that half marathon and had done fairly well, he was like, "Oh, you could run a marathon." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so I started running marathons for a couple of years after that. And so that's how I got into running.
Oh boy. So from half marathon to marathon, but at what point did you realize that marathon is not enough, 100K is not enough? I need much longer and much bigger distances. So when was the point when you realized that, okay, I'm built for longer distances?
I never really thought that a marathon wasn't long enough. I didn't know a whole lot about ultra marathons. I had a big gap. I ran marathons for about a 5 year period
Okay.
back on the East Coast. And then I was living in New Hampshire. And so I ran marathons and then I got married and had four kids. And so my running took the back seat for a while. I ran one marathon 4 months after my first baby. I ran a marathon. That was a goal that I was just trying to set and see if I could do to get back into running. After I had the baby, I ran through my pregnancy and then wanted to see if I could do that. I ran the marathon 4 months after my first baby. And then after that, I had more kids, like very close consecutively within 4 years. And so my running took a backseat. I ran as much as I could with them. I had the single stroller, then I had the double stroller.
Yeah.
And then when I had three kids, I was like, okay, I can't really do
Yeah.
this. Then I would just run if I could get out by myself for a few minutes. I figured 2 miles was like a success. So I just did whatever I could for a few years. I didn't run a whole lot. And then when my kids were older, fast forward to 2020, we decided to do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. We were planning this for 2021. In 2021, my 4 boys and I hiked the Appalachian Trail. At the time, they were ages 11 to 15. And the 5 of us set out, and my husband supported this from New Hampshire. And we set out and we hiked the Appalachian Trail, and we got hooked on hiking and backpacking and through hiking specifically. We hiked the next year in 2022, we hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. And then in 2023, we hiked the Arizona Trail and then the Continental Divide Trail. That's when I got introduced to ultra running and these ultra marathons specifically. It wasn't until that point, after doing a bunch of through hiking, that I started to have my world opened up to, oh, people not only through hike, but they do FKTs, they do ultra running. There are these huge endurance races that I just wasn't really aware of. And so once I saw that people were doing that, I was like, oh, that's really neat. And actually I have to give my son a lot of credit. Like one of them in particular was like so excited about all of this. And so that brought back my love for and my excitement for this too. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. And yeah, it's similar, right? The backpacking, the trailing and hiking, and it's kind of similar thing, but
Yeah.
you have to be more strategic that. But let's take a moment back to the time when you did your first half marathon or first race that you ever did, the half marathon thing. How did it feel the first time that you did it? And then compared to your last Cocodona, like when you go back at that moment and then come back now. So how are the feelings? Is it different? Is it the same excitement when you first like crossed the line?
I think crossing the finish line is similar. I think that when I did the initial half marathon, I was just like enjoying running and enjoying being out in nature. Like I just remember loving running on this trail, like in the wilderness with the snow. And it was just, I loved that part of it. I love being outside. I don't run on a treadmill. Like, I don't know, in all these decades of running, I've probably used a treadmill like 3 times. I don't like them. I'm not comfortable on them. I like to be outside. And I guess that's the part of the ultramarathon that I love too, is like just being outside through, like in Cocodona, you go through so many different amazing areas and trails. And I love that part of it. And crossing the finish line in something like Cocodona, I think is on what I experienced in Cocodona. Crossing the finish line was a relief. I want to cross the Cocodona finish line and be like excited and really proud of my effort. I shouldn't say I'm not proud of my effort, but I was dealing with injuries and issues. And so crossing the finish line was a little bit more of a relief than it was like, yes, I did my best. So I'm looking forward perhaps in the future to maybe doing it again. And that's what I'm looking for.
Oh God, Andrew Glaze has 5 times. You're probably gonna go and like, okay, I need that for myself.
Yeah.
So let's talk a moment about this humongous monster 250 miles of desert in Cocodona. Those are the kind of the races that literally breaks people. I know we talked about a little bit when you said you love the hiking and that's how you got into this thing, but why did you choose this particular event? 250 miles of hellish terrain.
Going back to when my boys and I hiked the Arizona Trail, and we finished, and we had a week before we were going to hike the Continental Divide Trail. And we were waiting for my husband. He was busy with work and he was going to fly out and spend a few days with us and take us down to the start of the next trail.
Okay.
And so we had some time. We had a little bit of time there that we needed to just do something. And a friend of ours who we had hiked some with was in the area, and he was going to watch Cocodona. He was going to watch that year Josh, who was a through hiker and who had the FKT on the Arizona Trail and had done the FKT on the Pacific Crest Trail. He was in Cocodona that year, the 250-mile race. And so our friend was going to watch him, and we asked if we could tag along. So that's basically how we were introduced to Cocodona, but really ultra marathons in general. And so we watched the race that year and we loved it and we got excited. And then so what happened is at the end of that race, Mike McKnight won the race that year, had that big comeback, and our friend Josh came in second. And so that was pretty amazing and incredible, we thought, for him to do so well. We were really excited. And that got us more excited and made us want to try it. And so, long story short, we were talking with Mike McKnight after the race, congratulating him and telling him about the Arizona Trail, talking about the Arizona Trail and how we wanted to get in through hiking. And he talked to some people and then ended up being able to register, get signed up for the 30. It was the Eldon Crest at the time. This was 3 years ago. So it was the Eldon Crest 36 at the time, but it was a 38-mile race that did go up and over Eldon. They've since changed the course a little bit, but we were able to do that. And so my 4 boys and I actually jumped into that race the night before it was going to start. We were able to jump into that race, and that was our introduction to ultra running, and we just got hooked. We all thought it was amazing, and so we did the 38-mile race, and then we were like, let's see if we could do the 250.
Whoa.
So then the next year, 2 of my boys and myself, so 3 of us entered Cocodona, and so that was last year. 3 of us entered and finished, and then this year I came back and my son Brody came back and my son Elliot wanted to do it. So 3 of us entered this year, and yeah, everyone wants to give it a shot and see what they could do.
Yes, I cannot believe it because you said you were just watching it and then did the 30-mile ultra race just for fun with 4 of the boys, and you said the smallest one was 11 at the time.
Yeah, at the time of the Eldon race, he was 12, I think. I don't think he was 13 yet. Maybe he was 13, but I think he was 12. And he finished. My boys are too competitive. So I say we all did it, but we did not run together. It
Okay.
was like every person for themselves. And so we all finished in our own time, but all of us finished.
That's incredible. That's amazing too, because going through and doing something as a family, it's a different kind of fun too. And when you're doing this thing, then everybody can be together too. That is amazing because you said you were just there for fun, and then, oh, my friend
Yeah.
did it, and they were like, oh God. And then you
Yeah.
said the first trail you did was 38. And then did you do anything in between to prepare for 250, or you just went for it?
We just went for it, really. We were doing another through hike, the Continental Divide Trail. And so that's from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. So that's over 2,000 miles,
Yeah.
2,700 miles anyway. In that time, we had a lot of time to talk and get excited about trying to do the 250-mile Cocodona. And so we were just getting excited for it. And then, of course, after that hike and over the fall and winter prior to the race, we were doing running and trying to do some training on our own. But the boys are involved in cross country and ice hockey. And so they had those seasons. So they couldn't train specifically just for Cocodona, but that was essentially like cross training as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And they were in pretty good shape.
You said you finished the first one with 2 of the boys. How old were they when you did it with them? Did you run together?
Last year, my oldest was 18 and the youngest was 17.
Okay.
So they were actually the 2 youngest to finish Cocodona.
Wow.
Last year. That was, yeah. And I think they both did very well. Brody placed 12th and Benjamin, don't remember his place, but I think he was in the top 30 overall. So they both finished. Just finishing is amazing. They finished and they both did very well. And so then this year, Brody came back and he came into the race not 100%, and he got some hypothermia and couldn't recover. I believe he also had another like sickness on top of that. And so he unfortunately DNF'd, but he was really excited and I think in great shape to have a great run. So that was a heartbreak this year.
Yeah, it's tough, especially because you need to run through cold too, and sickness it's not fun. I'm sure he's coming back next year to smash it again.
He would like to. My other son, Elliot, had also run, and the medics pulled him in, and he had severe hypothermia with a 90-degree temperature. His body just couldn't recover because 2 nights prior to the race, he had been throwing up and had a fever and so forth. So he came into the race not strong. His body wasn't ready. He was ready mentally and physically. He was ready for the race. And I also believe he could have had a great race, but unfortunately sick, and then the hypothermia took him out. So he wants to come back and get redemption for sure. Yeah.
When you have to run at night and everything, thing, then it's not fun. And when you especially come out of cold and sickness, it makes it more worse because it's not just like running a marathon. You have to run for days and you have to do so many things. So yeah, I'm
When
sure
you're
they will come.
well with yeah, I was just going to say it's not just that it's not fun, like it became dangerous when you're hypothermic like that and you're running a fever and you're hallucinating and you're out there. Typically at
Yeah,
that point, if you don't have a pacer or what have you, but yeah, it became more of a concern, like
yeah.
if you're hallucinating and you don't know where you are or what you're doing or you can't think straight, that becomes dangerous.
I agree. It's like we have been talking about, it's not an easy thing to do because it's 250 miles. It's not 26 miles. I'm sure
Right.
they would have crossed the marathon, but it's a different thing. And I'm pretty sure he'll be back. Both of them will be back next year and then try to
For sure.
finish it off. Yeah. As we're talking about this low moment, we talked about your sons, but did you have that lowest moment during the race? And how did you manage to come out of it?
I think my lowest moment was toward the end of the race. I was approaching Walnut Canyon and I was really like, in a way, like on the home stretch of a marathon or so to go, but
Yeah.
you feel like you're on the home stretch at that point. But I was coming along to Walnut Canyon and I felt some pain in my right shin. And last year in Cocodona, I ran 150 miles with some injuries that after the race I found out were stress fractures. And so, dear, when I was approaching Walnut Canyon, felt that same pain in my right shin, in my lower tibia, and I just knew. I was like, I know this feels exactly the same. I know this is. I refractured the stress fracture, like I could feel it in the same spot. And I was like so close to the end, but I still had so far to go
Yeah.
in a race like this. And so I had to slow down. I made a conscious decision to just not really try to run and push it, but just to hike it out to the finish. And so that was a hard decision, but not a hard decision. I want to come back and I want to do more. And so
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to like to I didn't want to do too much damage.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
knew I already knew I could already tell that I it was stress fractured and I just didn't want to make it worse.
Yeah.
So I just dealt with the pain. It was already plenty painful, and so I just dealt with the pain and piked it out to the finish. And so I would say this year, like that was my lowest moment for myself, like deal like the kids
Yeah.
and that was it was hard for me to be in the race and to know what was going on with the kids and to realize that they were sick. I had some moments around that. But for myself, I would say the hardest thing was making that decision. Okay, we're so close to the finish and we're having a decent race, but I can't race it out to the finish. I have to just hike it out to the finish.
I know how that feels because I also, like I said, what injury don't I have? So I know how that feels because, like I said, I had stress fracture too, and I was running this race in California, Turkey truck, and I didn't know what it was, right? Stress fracture, and I had put on the compression strips, and I was running, and then my leg was swelling up. So I didn't know at that moment what it was, but every step I take, it felt like it was so difficult. So I took off the sleep because the legs were swollen, but I was dumb enough to finish the race. But I remember that pain was so much, and the effect was long term because I know I finished the race, but after that, whenever I had that little bit of pain around the shins and everything, and I was like, oh god, the stress fracture is back. I had struggled a lot. Even now, if I feel something there, then my mind always goes to that stress fracture that I had, and it's like, oh god, it is the stress fracture. Even though now I'm much more stronger, but my initial first reaction is always like, oh my god, the stress fracture. Until now, and it's been around 8 years, and I still have that. Did you have stress fracture? So now, since you are finished, after finishing the race, did you check it out, and were you able to confirm?
Yes, I initially went and they said it typically takes 2 weeks to show like recalcification of the bone or what
Yeah.
have you, unless you get an MRI. They said it definitely sounds like it, but without an MRI, which I didn't want to go and pay for,
Yeah, it's
or
expensive.
waiting more time and
Yeah.
then get another x ray. But I know exactly how it
Yeah.
feels and I'm still, and now a couple weeks out, like I keep feeling I'm doing some walking and some hiking, but I can't run right now. I feel the pain. If I tweak my foot a certain way, I feel the pain in that spot. And I know that it's a stress fracture. And if I need that confirmation, I could pay for another x-ray
No.
or another MRI.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change what I need to do and so forth.
I was talking to Nicole. She didn't have stress fracture, but she had syncope, and she was using this scraper. I don't know if you use it,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, but
Oh,
she's been using it, and it kind of helps with the recovery. So I don't know if that's something you might be interested in, but yeah,
okay.
you can get it off Amazon.
Yeah, I think I might be looking for some kind of bone specialist or something so that I can make sure that I can try to rebuild my bone as best I
Yeah,
can so that I can
go
continue
back to it.
running into the
Yeah.
future. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. It's
Yeah.
hard. And I know the feeling, and I hope you can get back to it and then cross it again next year. There's plenty of
Yeah.
time, so you should be okay.
Thank you.
And also, we talked about the hallucinations, but with your son. So, did you actually hallucinate? And what did your brain throw at you after 70 plus hours of not sleeping?
Yeah, it's funny. In the beginning, it's every shadow or something looks like something, or you imagine it's something. And so I realized I was like, oh, I think it's starting, because I would think it was something and then I'd realize it wasn't. And I had that awareness at the very beginning. But then later on, there was a moment when I had a pacer and I was looking up a hill and I was asking my pacer, it happened to be my son, and I said, why are they dancing on top of the van? And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, that's dangerous. Like, why are they on the roof of the van? And he was looking at me like I was crazy. And I was like, they're not a van. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not there. And so then I realized, oh, I must be hallucinating. And then on another occasion, I was coming down the road on the road section into Prescott. There was a fire hydrant, but when I was approaching it, I thought it was somebody in a raincoat that was going to help direct me to which way I needed to go. But when I got to it, I was like, oh, it's a fire hydrant. So some funny things like that happened along the way, and it's bizarre.
Did you also the field where there was muddy? Because I talked to Cody, and he said his feet felt like
Oh,
5 kilograms of the thing. So how did you manage
yes.
to go through that terrain?
Yeah, so going into the Fane Ranch and then leaving Fane Ranch to climb up Mingus, that was incredibly muddy. And yes, I've had that experience hiking before on some of these forest roads that are like these dirt forest roads. And when it rains and it gets muddy, it sticks to your feet like cement. Like it feels like cement, and it can be inches thick. And then all of a sudden it feels like you're literally carrying like bricks on your feet. It's very challenging. Yeah. So through that field, we were trying to stay on some grassier patches and you just keep trying to kick the mud off as
Muddy
much
feet.
as you can. It's challenging.
And you have done this few times, right? So what did you learn about yourself this time compared to the last two events? And what surprised you about yourself in this finish?
I think that's something that I became more aware of and that I would like to work on. I think of myself as a pretty competitive person. I sign up for this race and I want to finish it, and I'm going to finish it. Even though I was injured or hurt or so forth, I was going to finish it. But I think the other thing that I realized is that I had a hard time just focusing on myself. I was very concerned about the boys, and I had to keep reminding myself that it was a race because it's such a long event
Yeah.
that maybe I'm not as competitive as I thought, or I need to enter the race with a more competitive mindset if I want to race it. People just want to finish it, but I want to race it, but then I don't have that mindset through the entire race. So then I get to the finish and I think, oh, I had more or I could have done better. So that's something I think that I realized this year and that I want to figure out and work on.
So did you have left more in the tank than you anticipated this time around?
I would say I definitely had a lot more to give to this race this year. I think had I not felt that injury in my leg, I could have had a much stronger finish. But I think even prior to the finish, I still had a lot of downtime at aid stations and things like that. From like a strategic standpoint, I have a lot to learn and I believe could do a lot better for my personal ability and my personal strategy.
as you have like few weeks to process everything that has happened, right? So do you have thing that you regret that you wish you didn't do, or do you go back and look at it and think, okay, maybe this is something I should have done?
That's a tricky one because my regrets maybe are surrounding like not pushing myself more or not focusing to the degree that I should have on
Mhm.
my own race. But, on the flip side of that, I don't have a lot of experience. And, part of me is okay, you're just learning and doing your best. And also, some of my concerns were like around my kids. And so it's hard to regret that. Obviously, I care about them. But if I had a regret, I guess it would be that I just didn't have more of the race mentality. And maybe I didn't push it like every stretch of the way as much as I could have.
Okay. And also this might be a tricky question as well, because like you said, you ran this with the boys, and being a parent, it's hard, right? So because like you said, you had so many things thinking about them, and they had obviously had DNF, so that pretty much had a little bit of mental strain on you. So how difficult it is to run this humongous race with your kids, because you have done it last year, they both of them finished, but this year both of them had DNF. So how difficult it is to go through these days and days of running, and then you have to think about your kid at the same time too.
Yes. Yeah, it's challenging. Last year, it wasn't so challenging because the two boys were both ahead of me. And so I thought that they were doing great and I was excited for them. And I was like chasing them in a way.
Yeah.
I knew that they were ahead and that they were doing great. They had their own issues. At times they were throwing up, or at times they were exhausted, or they had their issues, but those were expected during the race. They were still moving, they were progressing, they were doing well. And so I really did about them last year, but I did wonder. I was constantly asking people like, where are they? How are they? And things like that. But it wasn't so much a worry. It was just more of an interest and an excitement for
Yeah.
the end. So yeah, but logistically, it's very challenging as a family. My husband,
Yes.
my brother and his wife came and crewed. We had a friend crewing. This year, I had a cousin crewing, and we have some friends from hiking, as well as last year we had my nephew helping pace. And so it's it's family affair, but also like pulling in friends, because with so many of us logistically, it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I cannot imagine like trying to figure out crews for next year.
Yeah.
There might at one point all might be running at the same time, so that's going to be even hectic, because yeah, 5 people, crew for 5 people. Now moving on to the gears and stuff, because if you wear the wrong socks, that might win something. So what are your must-haves when you do these incredible huge distances?
Like as far as gear goes, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think that shoes are incredibly important because I feel like last year, I feel like my shoes might have contributed to the stress fractures. Because last year I actually had bilateral tibial stress fractures. And so even the orthopedic doctor that I had seen and talked to, and he confirmed those stress fractures, thought it was strange that it was like bilateral and in the same exact spot. And I think that had to do with, maybe you could say it was a gait issue or something else, but I believe that part of it had to do, at least part of it had to do with my shoes. And so I think shoe choice is incredibly important. And I think that personally, like I love my poles. Maybe that goes back to being a hiker and I've gotten used to using poles. So I definitely like having my poles, and obviously the running vest has to
Best, yeah.
be, comfortable and functional. Pockets need to be in the right
In the right place.
configuration. And so you got to figure that out, I've learned. So I had one vest last year that didn't fit great. So this year I used a different one and I was happier with that.
And also, did you have any gears that you brought it, but then you threw it mid race?
Nothing in particular that I can think of, although I would say like last year, I think I packed more stuff into my vest just in case kind of stuff, or
Okay.
I don't know. Nothing in particular.
And you also said that you wear poles, right? Obviously, you ran with the road. Any compression socks or any? Yeah.
I do have like calf compression sleeves, like calf sleeves, and I did use those on and off through some of the race, and
Okay.
I think that probably was beneficial.
And when you are doing these huge distances, nutrition is poorly and the fueling is poorly. Not everybody had the same stomach, and you probably use something that maybe have worked last time and maybe not work this time. So, what was your strategy going into this race?
Nutrition is another area where we don't have a lot of experience and we have a lot to learn. We tried to test out, like, if we knew they were going to be giving out Tailwind. And so we had used Tailwind in the past, and I tried to make sure that was going to be okay. That worked well for me. And then calorie wise, we're just like still experimenting with that. And so I would figure out how many calories I needed. And I tried to balance between using, like, say, Spring Energy, like gel kind of
Yeah.
things, and like solid food, because I feel like too many gels cause more problems. I feel like I need some solid food in there to help balance that. So I try to do like a combination of calories, but haven't really figured out exactly like what's the best thing for me and what works perfectly or anything like that. And then at aid stations, I would just try to take in whatever solid calories, like solid food calories I could get. Yeah, I'm still definitely working on that and learning about that.
When you take different kind of food, did you have any gut issues? And when you had this kind of issues, how do you deal in the race?
I think I was fairly lucky this year. I had one, like, going out of Crown King. I drank some of the broth. It had like a few vegetables in it, like some carrots and some celery and so forth, but it was mostly broth. But I drank that, and then as soon as I started to jog, I threw that up. And then as I was climbing, it's quite a climb, like out of Crown King, as I was making my way up out of there, that just sort of kept coming up. And so that, for whatever reason, just didn't settle well with me. But I ended up being able to take other things in and settle it. So it wasn't terrible. And then I think the gels, I'm not sure exactly, but I'm guessing that the gels do tend to cause some other gut issues that you deal with along the way. Nothing terrible. It's always so sad, I think, when you're going along and you pass somebody who's just pulled over and throwing up. It happened at times, but I know, like, for my boys that happened and they weren't able to recover. And so that's just sort of miserable. But if you're able to recover, like I was able to recover, and I was thankful for that.
And also, like we talked about the food, did you have any weirdest cravings while you were at the aid station? Like, oh God, I wish I can have that.
I guess it's not, I wouldn't say it's weird, but like in general, I don't drink soda. Like if I got to an aid station and they offered me a Coke, I'd be like, yes, I'll take it. So it's not like a weird craving, but it's definitely, there's some stuff in the race that, like, I don't necessarily crave or want or even have in general, that I'm like, yeah, I'll take that Coke and give me a handful of Oreos and just different things like that. I do love the spring rolls at the aid stations at Cocodona.
I was talking to Cody and he said he wanted quesadillas.
Oh, yeah.
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 He wanted quesadillas. And I think I was talking to Lindsay and she said she didn't take any solid food. She just relied on gel.
Oh,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's because she said it doesn't sit well with her, so she ran the whole race without, just with gel. So
She's moving fast.
she said she'll figure it out what works, but yeah, this time she just went without it. So interesting, like how all of our body reacts differently to different kind of things when you're doing this kind of thing. And in terms of mindset, mentally, how do you prepare for this kind of big events, especially when you may have these dark patches in between the races? So how do you train yourself for those?
I think I, like, in between as I'm training, or do you mean in the race?
Just how do you prepare yourself? Because you cannot, I don't know if you can train for it, but then when you are running these distances, but then there will be some dark patches, maybe in 100
Yeah.
miles or 200 miles. So how do you just train yourself to be able to go through and do all these kind of things?
I think that I think back to the training for it. If I was in the race and it was having a hard time, I think, okay, well, like, you've prepared for this and this is the real thing. This is it. So me, I just want to keep pushing because I know that I'd be more disappointed if I didn't finish.
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed. And so I just want to keep pushing. I think if I really was having a super challenging time in the race, I do go back to my faith and I get in a little zone. I might just be praying, or I might just be trying to push through it inwardly using my faith.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, it's been 2 weeks, right? So how does the recovery look after like 250 miles? What is the recovery?
Yeah, I can tell you that I realized one major mistake that I made is when the race was over in both years, as soon as the race was over, because of my injury, everything blew up. I was incredibly swollen. Like there was no definition in my calf muscle. You couldn't see my ankles, or my toes were huge. Everything basically from the knee down just blew up for me. When I went to bed, that after finishing, when I went to sleep, I didn't elevate.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a major mistake. And so then things just got more and more swollen. And then in this year in particular, besides the swelling, I had a huge like a real big, like larger than a quarter, like size of a $half blister on my heel. And so I couldn't put my heel down. And so between the pain of the injury and the pain of the swelling and the blister, my sister-in-law went out and bought me crutches, and I used crutches just to take some of the weight off my feet so that my son actually wheeled me down to breakfast the morning after I finished in the chair from the hotel room that had wheels, because I literally needed like a wheelchair or something, and we didn't have one. And so then my sister-in-law went out and got crutches, which at least allowed me to function, to get from A to B very slowly. But for literally a couple days, probably 4, 5, 6 days, I had to use those crutches until I could get the swelling to go down. And I had gone to the doctor regarding the stress fracture, and he agreed that it appeared as though I had the stress fracture, but we would need to do another x-ray or another MRI to fully confirm that. He agreed that I had that and was very concerned about the swelling and recommended the recovery boots. I got a pair of those and started using, helped tremendously to reduce the swelling. Using those boots then allowed me to get off the crutches because the swelling went down enough that I could walk gently.
Yeah, and it helps put up pressure from your leg too. That doesn't sound good, but it just describes. So I'm glad. I'm glad now.
I think all of this might just show what a novice I am, because I don't think that the people that are really good at these races and the professional athletes, they might be a little bit sore afterwards or whatever, but nothing like this. And I have a lot to learn, a long way to go.
Actually, Cody also had swollen leg, so that's what he said. I forgot to ask to Lindsay. I think everybody has that. I think it's just not you, because you are running for literally days. Yeah, yeah. I'm talking with Harry tomorrow, so I'll probably ask him and see if he has had the same issues or not. So it's interesting because once you talk with one.
What is post race, like immediately after, what are the things that we should be doing to help us recover better?
Okay,
That's
I'll ask him tomorrow because he won it last year and this year he finished overall 5th. So, and it's interesting because I talked to few of you like who did it, and everybody is going through different kind of things, and so it's just like when you go back and oh look, I talked to this person and he said this or she said that. So it's interesting to go back and forth once you talk to people. It's nice. It's funny too because he said he fell on one of the thing and he like face planted first. So and I talked to Lindsay, I said that, and she said thank God she didn't fall off. So did you have any accidents?
I get tripped up often, but fortunately on many occasions I'm able to catch myself because of my poles.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that I didn't. There are times where I have gone down, caught myself on my knee or so forth, but if I have my poles, I can usually at least minimize it.
Yeah, I have accidentally fallen off while running in the street because one of the thing would be like a little bit elevated, and when you put your toes on it and it's just like, oh God. Thankfully, because I used to play frisbee, so I was able to pull myself down, but I would have like planted bad. So now I look for it. And talking about you do these humongous races like 250 milers. So when you do these smaller races, does it still excite you, or are you hooked to doing these bigger distances?
Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of smaller races in between Cocodona and doing Cocodona again, although I did some half marathons and I did really enjoy those because I feel like at any distance, you could still try to push yourself or make gains, improvement. And so when I was running the half marathon distance, I was trying to improve my half marathon time. And I feel like now if I were to go out and even run a 5, it would be like, okay, I'm going to try to get, a personal best on that. And so I still think that every distance is interesting and exciting and worthwhile because you can always improve, right?
Yeah, it's sort of distance is always like, I'm going to try and beat my PB. I think that's with any distance. I don't know how it goes with 250 miles. So compared to you last year when you went and signed up for this year, did you have in mind that I'm going to beat last year's record, or what was your mindset?
Yeah, last year's goals went out the window at mile 100. That's when I was in a lot of pain. So at that point, for me, it shifted to just finish the race. I just wanted to finish. And so I had a ton of time at aid stations, and I was quite slow because I was in so much pain and I was just trying to keep moving. And so coming back this year, I knew I could do a lot better if I wasn't injured. I knew that alone could be better. And then I also thought I can definitely improve on my aid station stop time. So I tried to do both of those things. I still have a lot of improvement to make on the aid station time. And then, of course, my goal would be to make it all the way to the finish without feeling an injury. There are other problems, the gut issues or the different blisters and that sort of like discomfort or sleep deprivation. Like those things are gonna happen, and that's okay, I expect that. Like the legitimate injury, I would like to do Cocodona without feeling an actual injury.
Hopefully next year you can do it and go through it without any injuries.
Yeah.
So now talking about next year or next time, what is next for you? Are you coming back for Cocodona next year?
I had actually signed up for Tahoe 200, which is in a couple of weeks. I had gotten into that, but based on the status of my right leg right now, I can feel the stress fracture. I'm not going to enter that race because I know it's either going to make it worse or be so painful that maybe I wouldn't finish. And so to me, that's not worth starting the race with an injury like that. And so I am trying to figure that out. I'm not going to run Tahoe this year in a couple weeks, but my son Brody is. And so I will be there crewing and supporting him.
Yeah.
And we're super excited for that. But for myself, I'm going to push it off probably till next year. And so I have to decide about right now. I'm on the wait list for Cocodona. My son Elliot, who's 17, he's coming back. He wants redemption.
Yeah.
And my youngest son, whose name is Asher, he is currently 15. He will be 16 and he is registered to run. So I have to figure out if I'm going to be their crew and support or if I am able to get off the wait list if I want to run it again for myself. Of course, I want to run it again for myself, but I don't know if next year is time to do that or not. We will have 2, if not 3 or 4 of our family members in Cocodona next year, depending on the wait list and what we can figure out logistically with crews and so forth.
16 is the youngest, right? Will you be the youngest when it's time for finishing the Cocodona?
I believe a 17-year-old finished it year. Tug. He did a great job. What a wonderful kid he is. Nice young man. So he finished it this year. Last year, my son was 17, and so he was the youngest at that point. So I believe next year, if Asher is able to, if he feels good and he starts it and he finishes it, I think that'll be the new youngest.
16 years old. That's and he's trying to do this,
Yeah, he's got a little bit of experience pacing and crewing, and so he knows what he's in for to a degree. You don't know till you're in it, but he understands what to expect at least, and he knows the course. And so that'll be fun to cheer him on.
Yeah, his mindset is incredible that he wants to do this at 16. These are the regular questions I had, and so now there is a section called rapid fire. So there is only 5 questions. Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask you this, and then you can just quickly give me an answer, whatever comes to your mind without thinking, something like that. So, red or trail or road?
Trail.
Pre-race meal you swear by?
Well, I usually run in the morning, and so I don't usually eat a whole lot before I run.
Me too.
But if I was doing like an ultramarathon, I maybe have a little bit of bagel, maybe a little bit of banana, a little bit of oatmeal.
One piece of gear you would run back into the woods for?
Probably my poles, if I set them down and run off without them.
Bucket list race?
Right now, I want to do Cocodona, a race I haven't done. I'm a little bit interested in Bigfoot, or I'd be interested in maybe doing marathons again. When I was running marathons, I'd like to do one more marathon, I think, road marathon.
I mean, you do marathons, you do 10 of them. I mean, 9 of them.
I ran, yeah.
Oh
Back when I
no.
was running, I did Boston a number of times. And so I'd be fun to see if I could qualify again for.
Oh, yeah, it's easy peasy. I was just gonna say there is a race in England that is also 250 miles. I'm gonna talk to the guy who did that, and I don't know which race is it. I forgot the name of it, but there is an event in England that is 250 miles because I was searching through what are the other similar distances as Cocodona, so that was the race that came by. So that's maybe something
Yeah.
you'll be interested
Or
to.
some backyards might be fun,
Oh yeah,
like to kind
I
of 24, 48 hours, things like that to see what you could do. I
yeah
might
I,
like that.
Yeah, I talked to James. He's in England and they have a lot of backyard ultra. So he does them. Sounds fun because you kind of meet at the same time at every hour. So you can just go as long as you want. So you can probably run forever.
It would be
Uh,
fun to challenge myself that way.
I would be interested. See, I'll be following your journey now. So we'll see what happens. Shoes that you are loyal to.
Shoes. This year, I was determined to use my Asics running shoes. And so I actually moved away from trail running shoes
Okay.
because I just didn't think that they were right for my feet and for my arches, support, and so forth. And yeah, my
Okay.
Asics Nova Blast.
Post race indulgence, if you have any.
I think of food. I think of how hungry, right? How hungry I am. I guess I wanted to get like a massage, but I didn't have that lined up
Yeah.
and it's just another expense. I didn't use the massage. They were giving out massages, I think, at the finish line, and I just didn't take advantage of that. But that would be a wonderful thing, I think, that I would like to do that I should have done. But I also just think about food and just eating. I could eat just about anything once you're finished these races. For hours and days, you're still
They
eating.
spend, I don't know about sleep, but food definitely. People just want to like give me food every couple of
Yes.
hours. I'm hungry because I don't know how long it takes to get back to normal after doing those things. How long did it take for you to get back to normal and feel normal?
I feel like at least a week, maybe a little bit more. There's still kind of stuff, I don't know. As far as eating goes, maybe a week or so. But then if you have the blisters or different things like that, maybe a little bit longer.
One final question on that: solo run or group run?
I run by myself. I've actually never been a part of a running team or a running group or club or anything like that.
Okay, these are the questions I had, and usually I ask this question to everybody who's been on the show so far, and then I made a clip out of it. So I would like you to finish this sentence for me. Running has changed my life because.
Running has changed my life. It motivates me to get up because I know how great I'm going to feel if I go ahead and do that run, even if it's a few miles, even if it's not exactly what I planned. Just getting out in nature and running on the roads, on the street, whatever, in the sunlight or even in the winter, it doesn't matter. All kinds of weather, I'll go out and it gives me something to look forward to. I feel like it sets me up for the day. I feel good physically. I feel good mentally. Gives me time to think and process. And I think it's really given me a lot of direction. Besides raising my kids and my typical daily tasks and jobs and things like that, it's the thing that I love to do. So it's given me a lot of joy and a lot of direction and has brought me to Cocodona, which I never would have actually dreamed was possible.
Awesome. And now I just remember one more thing. If somebody is listening to this podcast today, right? So you have done these incredible distances, even though you never thought, like I said, you could do it. So what would be that one piece of advice that would give to somebody who's scared and they are not comfortable stepping out of the boundaries?
Yeah, I think that we humans are much more capable than we give ourselves credit for sometimes, especially somebody like you're referring to who might be hesitant or not sure that they could do it. I think that you find a distance. If you've not done any running, then shoot for a 5K and you sign up for it and you do what you can to get ready for it. And maybe the first time, certainly you set a goal, but maybe the first time is just to do it, to finish it.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think it grows. And I think there are a lot of people that maybe have done a 5K, a 10K, maybe even a marathon, but then the 100-mile or the 200-mile seems daunting to them or something. But I think that I would say to somebody, if you want to do it. If you have a desire to accomplish that, you can. You just have to take steps. Just take it one day at a time and do the little things to prepare for it. And then also give yourself grace when you go ahead and do it. If it doesn't go perfectly or you don't necessarily meet that goal, but you probably still made amazing gains and you probably still have a lot to celebrate. Even if you didn't meet your goal or even if you DNF, you still accomplished some amazing things. So focus on those and then go forward from there.
That's beautiful. That's gonna go on the clip too. Thank you for that. All right, I think that is it. Jenny, you are a badass, literally, because you have done this thing which feels like a daunting task and you have done it 3 times. Thank you for sharing your story, your strategy, and also some of the low points and high points that you went through. And for all of those who are listening, if this is the type of conversation that leads fire inside you and makes you think that what's possible and what can you do, like she said, go and try to do best as you can. So yeah, thank you for that. And I really appreciate that I got to hear your story from you and then get to know you more about your mindset and how you do this incredible hard thing. You have definitely inspired me too, because like I said, I've been in awe of everybody who has finished this, because this looks incredibly hard. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And I will look forward to seeing how you do on your race. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll come back again if you do another race, then, or we can come back in the middle and talk about it.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoy this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.